iPhone 16 Pro Max versus the Galaxy S25 Edge speed test. So let's see if this razor thin phone, how it can handle in performance against more of a thick beast in the iPhone 16 Pro Max. You could see it's almost half the size of the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Alright guys, so let's get this video kicked off with a boot up test in 3, 2, go. And I gotta tell you, I've had the S25 Edge for a couple days now, and I'm very impressed. It's not so much that I'm impressed with another Samsung phone. We do have one UI7 I've experienced already. It's the thin factor. It really is a game changer when it comes to day-to-day practical use, and it boots up much faster, but it's not something that you notice like initially. You do feel it, like it's like, man, it feels really light, but as the day goes on, as the days go on, you definitely can really tell how thin and light this phone feels. And honestly, even with a case on it, I know you would think, well, if I throw a case, it's going to make it thick again. It actually doesn't. It's still very light and still very easy to manage, even with an ultra thin case on it. And the iPhone 16 Pro Max booted up much slower than the Galaxy S25 Edge, which is rocking the Snapdragon 8 Elite chip and 12 gigs of RAM, just like the S25 Ultra. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and start off with the face unlock. So with the iPhone, Face ID, you're going to have to go ahead and kind of swipe to unlock it. So we'll start there. Just look, unlock. You can also just raise to wake and it will detect you. It's been a very reliable, tried and true way to unlock. The Samsung S25 Edge though gives you two options. You get that in-display fingerprint sensor, which actually is in the same basic location as the other devices, the S25 Plus and the Ultra, and it tends to work very well even once you know where it's at, even with the screen locked. Now if I take a look at the face unlock, it'll just pop right in there. So the S25 Edge also feels faster to get into the phone versus that of the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Now the 16 Pro Max has a very natural feel when navigating the software. It is a ProMotion display, which is dynamic, so it will adapt the refresh to basically the content and what you're doing. So it doesn't always run at 120 Hertz, but it tends to feel very smooth day to day and kind of just flicking across these home screens, menu UIs and things of that sort. It just runs along very naturally smooth, and I absolutely love it. Now the S25 Edge though is giving me very fast but also smooth vibes, so it really depends. So some people might find the S25 series to be too fast for their liking, maybe a little bit too much speed going on. I know it sounds weird, but it kind of does feel a little bit overwhelmingly quick sometimes. I'm not saying go back, but Samsung, you can lower the animations and make it a little bit more natural feeling, but just kind of going across, it does feel a little bit like the software is just blazing through everything. So if you like that power user kind of feel, I do think the UI just feels snappier and nicer on the S25 Edge. But if you like a more natural feel, maybe a slower, more intentional kind of feel of the day-to-day usage, you might like the iPhone experience more. Let's get on to the app test. So everything is closed out for both phones here. The calendar was open there. Let's go ahead and head into calendar on both phones. You can see, just like what we've seen with the Ultra, a faster looking animation, making the S25 Edge seem to move along a little bit quicker. Let's go into calculator, and you can see there is a lot of rock there because that camera is sticking off the body of the S25 Edge. Let's head up out of there. We'll go into Play Store, App Store, and again, faster on the right. And I do have this thing loaded down with apps, so don't say, oh, it's because of newer phones. Samsung slow down over time. Not in my experience. They've been pretty great lately, if you ask me. And the Samsung did turn on faster on the right. We'll go into Gemini, and that was quicker again on the right. Man, the iPhone hasn't won anything in this test so far. Not an app, not a boot up, not a launch speed. And we'll just keep the approximate location. Let's head up out of there. We'll go into YouTube. Faster again on the right. And again, if you're saying, well, it's network dependent, well, I've told you before, if you've been watching the channel, that Samsung tends to have a little bit more reliable, snappier internet speed as well. Let's go into Instagram in my experience, but this is where Apple really shines in social media. So if you are uploading to social platforms, you might like the results better, like the way the photos turn out in stories for example, or in your feeds on different social platforms, you might enjoy the iPhone a little bit more. Let's go into X, and again, faster. Still no wins to the iPhone. We'll go to Profile, faster again on the Edge. We'll go to Amazon on both, and that was quicker again on the Edge. Will the iPhone catch up in any app, though? That one wasn't really to the iPhone. We were just kind of like getting pop-ups. So you know what I'm going to do? We'll just run that one back. Let's run it back. Let's go to Groupon. Again, with the pop-up, but you see the S25 Edge was quicker. That was just because that initial pop-up. Let's go into Dead Trigger 2. And you'll see Dead Trigger 2 faster again on the right. This might be the first time a Samsung phone has beaten the iPhone in every single app. Let's see if it happens. Will the iPhone take one? And no, it's not going to happen today. Right as I said that, iPhone says, what'd you say? I got you, son. Let's go over here to the RTS, Race the Sun, and we'll see if Samsung strikes back with another W, and it does. So only app so far was Subway Surfers on the iPhone. We'll see if Call of Duty. Now, Call of Duty is definitely a little bit more intense to download. Hopefully, don't get no updates messing up the test here, like that has happened before. Compiling resources, and Samsung is headed into the launch of the game. Apple could strike back though, out of nowhere, and they did. The iPhone by a millisecond. So I'm going to give a slight win to the iPhone. Now in game, we have the 830 GPU, and they do have cooling chamber in the Edge as well, so don't be surprised. Don't think just because it's thin, all this thing's going to heat up crazy. I will tell you one thing I've noticed. The battery life is definitely suffering from being so thin. You're definitely not getting ultra level battery or even 16 Pro Max level battery life. So that is the sacrifice. But hear me out though. You might have to charge before bed, but you can still, with regular daily use, make it through a full day with the S25 Edge. It's just you're going to notice that a little bit more. And PUBG did go to the iPhone. It was faster. So iPhone is striking back in a couple of the games. And you'll see right here. But this one is going to go to Samsung. But now we have Samsung winning an even gaming department, an area where iPhone was historically ahead. Now, a lot of people do tend to say that, well, the games are still better, the ones offered. I do agree. A lot of the games and apps are still more polished and nicer on the iPhone. We'll go over to 3D Mark. That was faster on the iPhone. Speed test and faster on the iPhone. We'll go into InShot, faster on the Edge. We'll wrap it up with Luma. That was faster on the Edge. So wrapping it up, the Edge, I would say, won this test. It did win more apps, and even when the iPhone won, it was by milliseconds. We do not have a Samsung phone beating the iPhone in every single app still. So the iPhone did win a few, but on the whole, the Samsung won more applications. So it felt like the snappier phone here of the two. So let's get on to the RAM management now. All right, so let's relaunch the apps and see how this does. Man, this is what I love about the iPhone experience, and I can't wait to see Apple bring the iPhone Air. Having that ultra thin design like we see on the Edge with this iOS experience is going to be phenomenal. Because some people just want the iOS. They want a thin phone, a light phone. They don't want a heavy, bulky phone, and I think the Air is going to answer that problem this year. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. It's going to be a fun one to cover around here. We'll go ahead and click on the S25 Edge now. And if I ever say Ultra, forgive me. I'm just so used to saying that. We'll go over here and you'll see we're getting a little connections to the servers. Holding these apps pretty good though. I have the good lock turned on to the top gestures. So you can see phenomenal performance. Samsung still has that little blinking on a few apps. Gemini was a little bit weird looking right there, but no major issues. Holds everything. And of course, this being a Samsung phone, you are getting pop view. You know the drill. Split screen, flip it around, app pairs, edge panel. You know the drill. You get it all here. Everything in the kitchen sink. So that was pretty good. I would say that both of them pretty much tied in that area, though they didn't really relaunch anything. And here are the final scores after Geekbench 6 has been completed, and we do have an 8686 for the Galaxy S25 Edge. That's a pretty high multi-core score for the thin factor, 2482. So pretty nice. Let's go ahead and take a look here, though. So we did lose in the multi-core score, but we won in the single core, so that's a good thing. Now let's go ahead and go to 3D Mark. And if some of you were saying you should have compared that to the iPhone 16 Plus, well, the iPhone 16 Plus is much cheaper than the S25 Edge, which is like $200 more to start. So this is actually close to an iPhone 16 Pro Max in price. Let's go into Wildlife Extreme. I think the better comparison will come later this year, the iPhone 17 Air versus the Edge. That's going to be a fun one. 6.7 inch, so the Max and the larger S25 Ultra do get bigger displays, so that is something to keep in mind. But overall, both of them do a pretty good job. I'll be back when they're done with their Wildlife Extreme scores, and then I want to check the temperature on both phones after that to see how hot they're getting. It's kind of interesting to see if that S25 Edge is staying cool to the touch. And so our final scores are in, but I want to check the temperature before they have a chance to cool down. So we'll start with the iPhone here. So our hottest point, 106 degrees. That's not horrible. That's pretty acceptable. Let's see if the Edge is not dispersing heat as well. We'll go and check this out. And our hottest point, 106, 105. So about the same. So this is actually staying just as cool to the touch as the iPhone 16 Pro Max, being much thinner. So Samsung engineers did think about, this phone cannot get hot. It's going to make the customers really annoyed, and it would have made me annoyed. But I am happy to report this phone doesn't get toasty hot, even though it's super thin. You're going to love that. 5357 beats out the iPhone 3208 versus 28.7 on the overall frame rates, and scoring better than 95% devices, scoring better than 89%. So the S25 Edge, better multi-core score, better 3D Mark, a little bit worse single core, which means some of the daily apps might be better optimized on the iPhone. Let's go ahead and check the camera launch speed before we head up out of here. And we'll go ahead and do that in 3, 2, go. And that was the iPhone. I will tell you that this still has that annoying shutter lag that a lot of Samsung phones tend to exhibit. So the iPhone to me is definitely the better pick for camera in terms of speed. But actual results, I'm so happy that Samsung threw the 200 megapixel. It feels like a nicer camera on the main sensor than the S25 Plus, but the zoom is not great. It really isn't. And the quality really falls off on the Edge when you start zooming. So if you care a lot about zooming, you're not going to like the Edge. If you want like really long, sharp zoom, you want the Ultra. That is the phone to get. You'll see over here you do have a lot of modes, and at least they do throw in log, so you do get that. So wrapping it up, I have to tell you, after using the Edge for a couple of days, the iPhone 16 Pro Max feels downright bulky. It's still a beautiful phone, don't get it wrong. It still has longer battery life. But I'm ready to see what Apple's going to bring after seeing this device in terms of a thin factor. It just feels like if they can do this, this cooling, this nice of a thin design, I know Apple can do it. So it's going to be nice to see their Air version of this type of form factor. I'm excited for these thin phones. I think they're really practical for the daily use. For people using their phones heavy, it just lightening it up is really good. And it's another place that they can improve is they can add more cameras and try to improve the battery size, maybe use a silicon carbon battery or something like that. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know your thoughts on this one. I'll catch you on the next episode. Have a great Sunday. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.